Hi, Wyatt. Welcome. It's great to have you.
Thanks for having me, Vonnie.
So why don't we start with just introduce yourself and your role, and then we'll jump right in.
I'm Wyatt Maysey. I'm our Director of Sustainability at Taylor Farms. I oversee and implement our environmental and social strategy throughout our entire network.
So you and I have spent a lot of time together recently on packaging, and we're going to continue to talk about packaging. So I don't know if you saw the applications for the accelerator opened yesterday. So if you
Congrats.
know anybody that's interested and has any great technologies, go to our website and apply for the USDA grant. Let's start with, what do you see as the biggest sustainability drivers that you're seeing in fresh produce packaging? Is it from consumers or retailers or regulators? What's kind of driving the changes and the demands?
Yeah, I think 5 years ago, the answer would have been buyers and the retail community. Since then, there's been a lot of activity on the regulatory front. So by far, it's regulatory right now in various different ways, whether it be recycled content mandates, PFAS regulation, or EPR, extended producer responsibility.
So talk about what you're doing at Taylor Farms in response of all of that activity and demand.
Yeah, right now it's so complex and it's proliferating so quickly. I think my recommendation internally is get the foundation established. So what I mean by that is, how much packaging do you use? What types of packaging do you use? Really inventory your entire portfolio across the board. Collect various different metrics around recycled content, where it's manufactured. Really establish that baseline. And that way, as regulatory really picks up and it might change a little, you'll be in a really good spot to pivot when needed on various different requirements and buyer requirements as well. And so we've done a few investments, for instance, one called Spec Right. So that's really a spec management system that allows you to really uh, get that inventory organized. And then we're looking at different partnerships, such as what's called life cycle assessment tools, maybe partnering it with that so we can immediately API over our specs and do a quick analysis of, say, LCA or environmental impact. We're also looking at PEC Expo when we were there. APR briefly recommended a new tool. So they have their current design guide that sits in kind of a self-assessment framework, and you have to really self-assess it. They're automating that. Because we made that previous investment in SpecRite, we might be able to tap into that tool and quickly assess recyclability, not just in plastics, but maybe even fibers. So that's really exciting.
When we were at Pack Expo and you had told me about Spec Right, and then I went to hear their talk and talk to the CEO, and no one's doing what they're doing, right? And it's such a need to really tie all these things together.
But it seems so obvious. You hear it and you say, well, yeah, that makes total sense. Why have we not done that before? I think some companies baked it into their ERP system and were very lucky to do so. Those that didn't, this is going to be a struggle. And you're going to probably want a software tool to help you expedite and efficiently organize that.
And so he's trying to build some coalitions and just it was really interesting talking to him. Matthew,
yeah.
Yeah, I can't remember his last name.
Right, I believe.
But he was talking about really the need of solving this as an industry issue. And yes, he's building a tool for it, but he also wants to get people talking to each other because, as you said, and he said, like, a lot of people are just ignoring that this is even happening, right?
Well, it's hard because it sits in a different sphere. It's not coming from local municipalities, such as an air permit or a water permit. It's not coming from federal. It's coming from state legislators. So also, you as a voter are not voting on this type of regulation. It's coming from the state legislation, and so oftentimes it's not paid attention to that much because it just sits in a different realm. And I'm finding that even a lot of grower packer shippers may have some legal advice or a legal advisor internally. They're advising on larger things such as broader M&A type work or labor, and not so much looking at and looking for things around packaging, environmental issues, etc.
So you talked about that it's coming from the state level. And there are fairies walking by the booth right now. It's
Distractions.
a little distracting. That's great. Um, But so Oregon, as far as I know, is the only one that has really instated anything so far. And then there's 7 other states that are starting to do that. Is that correct?
So Oregon was the first, and that invoice was charged this year for previous year reporting. But Colorado has also already been enacted and reported, and so California is next on the docket. We'll see how that goes. Not looking forward to it. Each state is going to be similar but different. The way they implement the fees are going to be different. The material categorizations should be aligned, but the fees will be different. And then what we talked about, the malices and bonuses, those will all be different. Hopefully, I think APR is really trying to drive alignment there. But that's what I mean. How I don't think today you can really track all the nuances. So it's really, you got to read between the lines and try and prepare yourself from a basis. I call it trying to filter to the prime. If you know that most of them are going to be assessing by material type, there may be fees associated, or assessing by PFAS or recycled content, it might be wise to reevaluate your specs internally to figure out if that information lives in those. If it doesn't, I highly recommend doing a respec of all your packaging and then figuring out a tool that allows you to quickly find them. You don't have to invest in an outside software, but I'm not seeing a lot of internal tools set up for that kind of work.
But for people who buy packaging from someone else, they don't even know, right? Like they have to go back and ask the question of their suppliers. Is that right?
Yeah, often the information isn't transferred. You maybe have the die cut and the print label, but you don't have the specific spec of the component and don't even know what the material is technically. So yeah, there's a lot of back and forth with the manufacturers. And even when you do that back and forth with the manufacturers, it's not regulated. A spec is not regulated, so they don't have to disclose some information. They may just leave the recycled content box blank, even though they do have it. So there's a lot of back and forth and communication that's going to be still required, even when you do initial, say, spec journey of trying to receive all your specs from your packaging.
So to get off this topic, because
Yeah,
it's like it sucks all the air out of the room in every
it
conversation
does.
I have
It
because
does.
such a mess. But just to finish that, so if someone's listening to this and they don't know where to start, what would you tell them?
Yeah, I'm always a data guy. So really establish your data baseline. Again, that'll help you pivot in whatever the regulation may be. And it's not just, when I say data, it's not just quantitative, but qualitative. And really get a hold on your packaging specs.
Because it's coming.
Yeah, it's coming in one direction or another. As the states continue to increase too, it's just going to get worse.
So what role do you think technology plays in making packaging both sustainable and cost effective?
Yes, great question. I like to talk about this, and I don't hear enough about it. So I'm going to start at, when you think of a material, anything tangible, that has a life cycle. So a cardboard box, for instance. The box itself is not really the environmental impact, the majority of it. It's how did you extract that material from, say, forestry, and then how did you manufacture it into that box that it lives in today? That's where the majority of the impact comes from. So when we talk about technology and driving what's going to make packaging more sustainable or lower environmental impact, I think technology is going to play the most important role in how do we extract materials and raw materials and resources from the environment, and then how do we manufacture that into a finished product. That's where I think the biggest shift is going to happen. I don't think materials can get that much more innovative. Maybe they can, but it's kind of this circular moment where we went to polymers, and now you kind of see this transition back to fiber and some natural states or natural resources. So I think it's interesting. I don't know if materials will change as much, but it's the way we produce them and extract them. That's where the biggest impact can happen.
One of the things that we talked about in Chicago was just so we start having new materials, and but then we have to have pieces of machinery that can do something with that. So talk a little bit about that and how you see that change and how we work throughout the supply chain there.
Yeah, and I think it's important you bring that up because that could be a huge learning lesson that you don't want to go through. So, say, to your point, say you choose a new material, you switch from a PET tray to a fiber tray. How is it going to run through your line? What's the speed? Or can you do an adhesive and do a film seal to the top of it? Or do you have to retool your line completely for that? All of these things, the little nuances of packaging don't just change the packaging itself. It's the entire infrastructure to make that finished product from how you receive it at the plant. So maybe it takes up more airspace, so you have to do more shipments to your plant. To then when you put it on the line to fill and create that finished product, maybe the fill speed is different, and you have to extend the length 2 centimeters. It's minute changes that are really costly. And what's hard is we're so material focused that I think we have to be careful, because if you get too excited and change your material because you think you found the end all be all and retool your lines and then realize that, oh, it got us to recyclable, but that doesn't translate to technically sustainable, and you have to retract, you're not just changing a material in and out, you're changing your entire line manufacturing process. So, and I think that's a double work though. It's not just on, as a supplier, you're thinking about material, challenge your manufacturers to understand that too. Do I have to change my line completely to run fiber? Or can I challenge my manufacturers or my machinery providers to test multiple materials and make sure that we can run multiple materials? I think that's going to be something also not talked about. We're just talking about materials, fiber, plastic, etc.
So last year we gave the Circle of Excellence Award to Taylor for the Earthbound product. What's happened in the last year with that packaging product and other ones that are coming along?
I believe, I wasn't as in tune with that, but it started with spinach, I believe. And so I think the next step was to us to try and expand that to different different commodities. And that changes a lot. Most of our manufacturing, almost all of it, is modified atmosphere, which means that a spinach doesn't have the same atmosphere requirements as a romaine, which means that changes the film at the top of how you may microperf it or what respiration it allows, etc. And so it's not as simple as, oh, this worked here for spinach, let's just take it across the line. It doesn't work like that. I think a lot of our team's time has been put to that. Where can we expand that to different product? And then how do we get that in the market? You found a hit with, I think, a couple customers, but there's that premium delta that's not easy to absorb. And so it's been a very slow integration into market, I think. But our team is working heavy on how do we expand it into different product categories, because I think it would be harder to just stay in spinach and drive it and drive it and drive it. Why not try and expand it into different product line? Yeah.
Are there other things we can expect to see coming along? What else are you working on?
Our business is kind of split into 3 segments. And in our retail side, that's where most of the modified atmosphere happens, because you want to get to a 15, 16-day shelf life. That's where material selection is much more difficult. And we're looking at compostable films, et cetera. But those OTR rates, water vapor transfer, et cetera, much more stringent and difficult to achieve. Whereas in our prepared foods, meals or product that has a 2 to 3 day shelf life where you don't need modified atmosphere, there's a lot changing in that space, from aluminums to fibers to plastics. I think I see a general shift towards more compostables is interesting, and there's nuances to that too. And I know I talk about LCA all the time, but that's, again, this perfect situation where you think you're transitioning to maybe a material that you think has a lowered environmental impact, but have you assessed it properly? Compostable doesn't, again, mean sustainable. You could have a significant material extraction process and manufacturing process for that. And in the end, it is compostable. But again, from a total life cycle, you maybe cut off 3% of the total life cycle impact. But on the manufacturing side, you gained 10. So it's these things have to be. Yeah. So I'm internally, I'm really trying to stress, do we have the right assessment formula? It's not all about recyclability, compostability. Yes, that helps. But I think the picture is bigger than that. And that's a culture shift, not just in our internal Taylor Farms, but our industry as a whole as well. Everyone's industry. Yeah, it's all industries, really.
Yeah, exactly. Fast forwarding to 2030, what do you think the produce aisle is going to look like?
I think because we're on this road of material selection, that's where we're going to see the most change. So I mentioned it last time we talked that those materials, plastics, they offer not just good functionality, transparency. You can see the product. With a lot of the alternative materials coming down the pipeline, consumers, I think, are going to have to come to terms with maybe not being able to see the product as much, whether it be fiber or less transparent film that is compostable. So I think it's going to present a difficult challenge. You're coming up against, oh, well, we want lesser environmental impact packaging, but the consumer can't see the product. So it's going to be an interesting tie-in. And again, that maybe have to be an auto correction where, we made this huge shift in less transparent packaging and the consumer won't buy it. Are we supposed to then retroactively come back to plastics? So I think those conversations need to happen now. The testing needs to happen now.
Yeah.
And then also how is it communicated to the consumer on package? And I think it's interesting though, because it's going to play into it's going to play into a brand conversation. How much do you trust the brand? If I can't see the product, I need to rely on the brand name and know that the quality's there. In one company that does this so well, Driscoll's. You know what you're getting. I don't even have to look at the berries half the time to know I'm gonna enjoy them. So I think it kind of that we're on that trajectory.
If everybody has to do it and it's a level playing field, it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. So
Yeah, how do you differentiate yourself from a product that the consumer can't see it?
you can't see it. Yeah.
You have to bring in more brand power, more brand image, right?
Someone I was talking to about this today, they were saying, well, could you allow people to open the package like eggs? We all open eggs to look in it. And my original thought was, well, like consumers may not be acting correctly in the produce aisle and they won't close it back up. And so then you've got like all these packages, open. But if you go look in the eggs, everyone opens eggs and looks at them and they close them. So I guess if it was easy to close, so maybe there's something there. I don't know.
Yeah, that scares me a little on
I know,
food
me
safety
too.
side.
I know.
But
People
it is
putting their hands in
interesting.
there,
It is interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that wouldn't do well for us. We've transitioned to peel reseal. I don't know if we want people peeling.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, that's an interesting thought. How do you have like a tester? You know how it's a display. This is what
Yeah.
it looks like.
Yeah, but that's
don't know.
what that one looks
Yeah,
like.
that's
Yeah.
true. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not the
Yeah.
answer on that.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Wyatt, it's great to talk to you as always. Thank you so much for doing this, and I will see you out there on the floor.
Yeah,
Thank
thank
you.
you for having me, Vonnie.